Hey guys, this is Project After the Storm, and today I'm going to be talking about what actually led up to my psychosis. And when I say my psychosis, I'm referring to my worst incident of psychosis, the one that actually landed me in the mental hospital. So I'm getting into that today. To start it off, I'm gonna go back probably about 6.5 years before my actual diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder. Or 6.5 years before I went into the hospital. Um, it started off, the things that I feel like were kind of like the warning signs, or the warning sign, was I was experiencing feeling very sad for certain periods of time, and then other periods of time feeling like very amped, feeling like very happy, you could say. And I um, I put this in my mind, I labeled it, or I thought that it could be very well be bipolar disorder, because bipolar disorder actually was already in my family, and I thought it could be that. That's what I thought that I was dealing with when I was 16 and a half. And well, the thought went on for a little while that that's what I was dealing with. When I was 17, a little bit into turning 17, or yeah, right around 17, I started smoking weed. And when I did this, my one of my later thoughts that came to me just a little bit after smoking or starting to smoke was, this is helping me. This is helping me feel better, feeling relief from my ups and downs, and mainly my downs that made me feel really bad, really low, really sad. And yeah, so it did. It seemed like it was helping me. Right before this, I do remember. I want to say, like, there was a moment where I remember I addressed this with my mom. I addressed that, I'm pretty sure I have bipolar disorder. I think I have bipolar disorder, and I let her know that, and she tried to reassure me that it was probably just something else that I was doing, drinking too many energy drinks, or not sleeping enough, or and I just need to take better care of myself. Well, I don't know if that was the case, but we move on. And like I said, I had started to smoke weed. I discontinued. Smoking weed continued for some years. It continued for some years, and I would say instead of getting better, I wound up getting worse, because I was smoking weed pretty regularly. It wasn't something that I did just once a month or something like that. It was something that I was doing at times daily, and at first I felt it was doing me a positive, and I do actually remember when I was 17 or 18, kind of going from this point of, I grew up in a Christian home. For some background, I grew up in a Christian home, and I went from this point of, even with that, growing up in a Christian home, I went from kind of being almost agnostic. I feel like I believed in God deep down inside, but on the surface and in my normal everyday thinking, I was more agnostic. I definitely didn't think that there was no God. Like, I was sure that there was no God. Like, I didn't think that. I was not an atheist. I never was. But I wasn't very firm in my belief of God. And when I smoked weed, um, a little bit into that, maybe some months into that, I started to kind of feel like God was knocking at my door. Like, I could feel God. Like, I believed God was there. And that meant something to me. I was like, wow, this plant is not, it's not nothing. It means something. And I still believe that that's true. What I do believe, though, is that I was smoking way too frequently, and I was smoking the modern weed. Like, I was smoking weed that it's engineered um, unnaturally. Like, it's GMO weed. It's the weed of today. It's not the weed of the 70s. The weed of the 70s, it didn't really have links to schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. The weed of today does. It does. And it's very damaging. I don't even know if you can find weed that is natural in its natural state anymore. I'm not even sure. I don't really encourage anybody to try to smoke weed or do that. Just because there's one positive thing in a pile of negative doesn't mean that you should go and do that for that one positive thing. There are other ways to experience God, to get to know God, besides just smoking weed. For sure, for sure. I believe that. And yeah, so like I said, I did that for some time. Smoked weed for some time, and it was about 6 years, I want to say, that I smoked for, on and off, not consistently every day for 6 years, but on and off for 6 years. Um, and I did feel myself get kind of worse and worse as time went on. I don't think it was just because of the weed. I also did other things, namely psychedelics, which I kind of maybe got a little bit lost in. Like, there were some positives there too in that, in the psychedelics, but there was a lot of getting lost and not knowing how to navigate things, and sometimes not knowing how to navigate reality, not knowing how to navigate my own thoughts properly. And it was pretty overwhelming. It was pretty overwhelming at times. I felt a lot of weight. Um, so there was that. And between those two things, I think those two things kind of set a stage for a different kind of thinking. And in some ways that was positive, in a lot of ways that was negative. And like I said, I did feel myself getting worse. I did also see myself getting more open in a sense, which in a sense is good. But because I didn't hold as much of grudges towards other people and things like that, that was good. I can't deny that. That was and is good. It still sticks to me. It still sticks with me to this day, even though. And I'm not saying that I never get upset. I never hold a grudge. I never get. But it's a lot better than when I was younger. It's a lot better than when I was younger, and yeah, I feel generally more calm when it comes to those things. So the negativity was, like I said, getting lost in my thoughts, getting lost in negative thinking. So I would sometimes just think negatively of myself or others, and I'd just focus on the negative that I could see, which a lot of the time was reality. Sometimes it wasn't. It was just me getting completely lost, but sometimes it was reality, but I'd get fixated on the negative in myself or others, and it would discourage me. It would really discourage me, especially if getting fixated on the negative in others. It would discourage me because I thought, or I saw the people in this world did not live how they should be. I saw that people were, in my opinion, they acted fake a lot of the time. They acted fake. I saw that. And I saw the people didn't live to be like how I thought they should live to be, with the integrity and the positivity that they should live with. I saw that. But at the same time, I wasn't living like how I thought myself should live, how I thought I should live. I wasn't living to that standard myself. I wasn't that, but I was seeking that in other people. I was looking for that in other people, for other people to be better than me. This lost kid, I was looking for them to be better than me, but a lot of them were lost too, or are still lost. And that's okay. That's it's not great, obviously, to be in that state, but it's okay, because we can't put all this responsibility on other people when they're not us. We're not in control of them. We can't put that responsibility on them. We got to keep it moving sometimes. We got to see that people are lacking in some ways and just keep it moving and not get fixated on negativity, and also know to forgive those people when those people hurt us a lot of the time. To forgive them, not let them walk all over us, but to forgive them. That's what I learned. That's what I learned. Just keep moving and not try to, just don't hold grudges, and that becomes easier with time and with practice. But that's what I was learning, and that's what I still see to this day. But yeah, the negatives were there. There's also cognitive stuff that exists, like from drug use in general, from psychedelics, and especially smoking weed. Like when you do it from a young age, it affects you cognitively, and it makes you a little bit I want to say slower, but it's not just slower. It's difficult to explain, but it affects your sharpness, your mental sharpness, I believe. I think it affected my mental sharpness. It gave me some other things that, I am grateful for the positives, but it did affect my mental sharpness. And obviously the psychiatric medication that was prescribed later after my psychosis and after my diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder, that affected my mental sharpness even worse, even more. That affected me even more negatively in the mental clarity than the weed and the psychedelics. That was yes, it took me away from psychosis, which I'm glad for, but that was it just took me away, took my personality away. It took me away completely, almost. It was very depressing for me. I didn't feel deep emotion when I was taking a lot of psychiatric medication. I would take much less. I feel much better, but I didn't feel that, and I felt very slow, way slower than when I was smoking weed or anything like that, way slower, and yeah, it was discouraging. It was definitely discouraging. That came after. I'm talking about what led to my psychosis. It was drug use. It was not reaching out to others when I should have reached out to others. I will say that too. I had a couple opportunities at least to be able to reach out to my family and tell them, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. I think I may have, and I told my mom much later, like a month before I went to the hospital. I told her, hey, I think I have schizophrenia. But I should have said it before to my family. Hey, I think this is what's going on. I think I have schizophrenia, or I think this is what's going on, because I had signs, and I'll get into the signs maybe in another video. But yeah, I should have reached out to my family. Not reaching out to my family is another thing that led to it, that led to the psychosis, because maybe it could have been caught earlier and I could have managed the psychosis better or avoided the psychosis altogether. I did have a small episode of psychosis a couple years before my big episode, but it was very small in comparison. I was still able to function. I remember going to job interviews. I remember going to work. I remember doing different things, and through it was very mild compared to the psychosis I had later, which I was completely unfunctional for. So yeah, I don't know. I've said this in other videos, but I'm grateful to be where I'm at. I'm grateful to be where I'm at. I feel some other things probably did lead to my psychosis that I can't clearly identify right now. I'll say one thing. This is something I forgot. Another substance, Phenibut. That was something else I was taking. I started taking it a lot. About a month or 2 months before my psychosis, I was taking it more days than I wasn't. More days than I was. I was taking it at least 5 days a week, and to go to work, because I was working a night shift, and I had a lot of anxiety at the time. My anxiety was probably worse working the night shift, and I was taking that for my anxiety. It's generally for anxiety, and it's not really something you can find anymore. I don't recommend taking it. I don't recommend you going and trying to find it. I don't recommend that, but I was taking that to help manage my anxiety, and the withdrawals from that after you stop taking that are really tough. I ran out of it. I stopped taking it after I moved states, and I feel like that was one of the things that kind of led up to my psychosis, along with, and I've talked about this in other videos, along with stopping smoking weed altogether, because I was smoking weed about every day, along with vaping nicotine. I was vaping nicotine. I was going through one disposable vape, like an $18 disposable vape, every single day. That's where I was at. So when I quit that was huge impact on my mental health. Like, it was a huge hit, like a huge punch to the gut at once. Stopping smoking weed, stopping that, the nicotine, stopping Phenibut all at once. Like, that was a huge punch to the gut. It was, difficult to make it through that. And I thought I did, but then I started not being able to sleep. I got this mania. I had psychosis, and that's what happened. So definitely a precaution to just be careful. Avoid substance use that you don't need to be using. If it's not from your doctor, my advice is to just avoid it. Like, especially, like, we have a baseline that we don't really leave until we start using drugs and things like that. That baseline is excellent. Like, that for most of us, and I know some of us have issues, some of us have depression, some things like that. I'm not a doctor, but I know that a lot of us go through that. And but our baseline is generally a good point to stay at. And if we need help, sometimes we go, to the doctor, or we try to, go to the doctor, And I wish I would have seen a psychiatrist sooner and figured things out sooner. I wish. That was one of the things that led to my psychosis, I'll say, is not seeing a psychiatrist sooner. I did see one, actually, but I didn't get prescribed anything. I didn't follow through with the appointments because I was afraid of the medication. I was afraid that the medication would dull my personality, which in the end it did, but it saved me from psychosis too. It did dull my personality. But if I would have gone sooner, maybe I could have gone on less medication and things would have been better. Things would have been easier. That's what I think could have been. But I didn't, and it is what it is. Here I am today. I'm better, and I'm grateful to God for that. So, yeah, guys, I think that's going to be it. That's going to be everything. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please, if you did, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.